Guten Abend und herzlich willkommen zu unserer Diskussion zum Youth Lead the Change. Sehr kürzlich auf Deutsch und jetzt auf English. We are so excited to have you all joining us live, thank goodness, here at amerikahaus in Munich and, of course, virtually in Boston. My name is John Stubbs, and I am the Consul for Public Affairs at the U.S. Consulate General here in Munich. We are thrilled to support the vision of Munich 2040, and of course, Youth Lead the Change, and Youth Lead the Change Germany, naturally. And more importantly, to welcome the panelists we have with us here on stage from YLCG and in Boston, Massachusetts from YLC. We will start out with a discussion to hopefully address some frequently asked questions and to set the stage for everyone. And then we will turn it over to you, our audience, to ask questions and hopefully cover any topics that we don't cover in the regular session. As Ines said, you may ask questions via your mobile phones, and we will get to as many as we can within the allotted time. You can use Slido, and we will get those on stage. Let's get started. I would first like to let our panelists introduce themselves, because I think people can do that better than maybe I can. First, I would like to throw it to Boston, our friends in Boston, starting with Fawaz Mas, the Youth Lead the Change Capital Project Coordinator. Fawaz, over to you.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Fawaz Mas. I'm the Youth Lead the Change Capital Project Coordinator here in the city of Boston, working under the Department of Youth Engagement and Employment.
Awesome, Fawaz. Thanks so much for joining us. Olivia, maybe you next.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Olivia Adido. I've been a member of YLC for 3 years, and I've been the director of YLC for the past 2 years. So thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, Olivia. And Sporty, over to you.
Hello, I am Spoorthi Channappa. I'm 18 years old, and I was the Deputy Director of YLC last year, and I've been on YLC for the past 2 years.
Awesome. Coming back here to Munich with our good friends on the stage. Who wants to go first? Martin?
Ladies first?
Okay. Ladies first. There we go.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. It's really a pleasure, and it's really an honor to talk to you guys and also to you in the audience about Youth Lead the Change. And it's great to see Olivia and Spoorthi again. We just had a Zoom call some months ago, and we talked with each other, and it's a great cooperation we're having with each other. And I'm Clara. I'm 25 years old, and I'm studying political science, but I'm living in Hamburg, so I'm from the north, and but I'm glad to be here in Munich.
All the Bavarians in the audience won't hold that against you. Martin, over to you.
Yeah, also glad to be here. Thanks so much. It's an honor. My name is Martin. I'm 20 years old, and yeah.
All right.
I think it's kind of it.
Sweet. All right.
Short and sweet.
I like it. So just to start the discussion off, I think folks in the audience are probably wanting to know a little bit more about the specifics for Youth Lead the Change. Your motto, when I was sort of looking more into this and sort of going through things, is youth power plus youth voice plus youth vote equals community change, and focuses on giving young people power to basically affect change in their communities. Where did the idea come from? And what was the initial intention or motivation behind creating YLC? Olivia, I don't know if you want to take that, or maybe Fawaz too can chime in.
Yeah, definitely. So this program, Youth Lead the Change, is part of a group called the Mayor's Youth Council, which has similar committees to Youth Lead the Change, and we all focus on various areas. But our mayor, Mayor Walsh, back in 2014, I believe, decided that he wanted to get more young people in the city involved in the government. He wanted the young people to feel like they have more of a voice and a say in their own community in a really powerful way. So he decided that every year he would dedicate $1 million of the city's budget to this committee that he created, Youth Lead the Change, to kind of initiate that.
Awesome. So did the mayor approach a certain group of youth, Fawaz, or was this, how organizationally was this started?
Yeah, so, yeah, very similar. He did reach out to the Mayor's Youth Council was already established, so he did reach out to them through the Mayor's Youth Council, the Department of Youth Engagement and Employment, and that was how Youth Lead the Change was able to come about. Also, just to harken back a little bit, a majority of this was done through a process called the participatory budgeting process, which was able to provide the funding for the $1 million a year that Olivia alluded to earlier.
Gotcha. Wow, $1 million. That sounds like a lot of money to me. What was the motivation behind the mayor's office donating, or not donating, putting that amount of money and giving it to youth? Was there a particular motivation beyond just direct youth engagement, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was the youth engagement aspect, as well as like the civic engagement, having the opportunity to just educate the youth on kind of how the city government operates, and especially giving them those dollars to kind of create change within the city, and through capital projects, and allow them to renovate, fix, even build on things that they want done in the city, which was kind of the main reasons behind that.
So tell us a little bit about the process, and about, have you seen growth from the first initial stages to today? Are there more and more people, more and more students, more and more youth becoming involved? I'm just going to sort of throw out a lot of questions that we can maybe talk about individually. Can anyone participate? How are projects sort of selected? What happens after a project is selected? So if you could walk us through the schematics of how this works. I don't know who wants to take that. Yeah, absolutely. Sporty, let's hear from you.
So every year there's about 80 people on the Mayor's Youth Council, and within that, some are chosen to be on YLC if they choose to do so. And the process of choosing the projects, so first is the writing the rules of who can participate, who can vote in this process. And that is selected by the members of YLC. And then afterwards there's an idea collection. So after we figure out who can submit ideas, then they will submit it. And from there, we will organize them and choose some of which is feasible, which can be done. And once we have selected those about 6 projects, we put them into project proposals and lay out the details of each of those projects. So if they are voted, we know what the next steps are. Then after that, we have our voting process. So we send out those 6 proposed projects to a certain range of Boston's youth, and we usually do that through outreach at different Boston public schools or just different community centers, libraries. Then once we have the top 3 projects that are selected, we start implementing them and actually start the construction process.
Awesome. That sounds like a very complex process. So normally, you talked about deciding on who can vote. Who normally, in a normal year, can participate? Is it just determined by the governing board, or how is that determined?
Yeah, the specifics of the rules are just determined by the governing board, but in general, it's generally people ages 13 to 18. Some years it's been 13 to 20, 13 to 22. But just in general, youth in Boston who live in Boston. Some years it's been youth who maybe don't live in Boston but attend schools in Boston. But generally just young people in Boston is the overarching theme. Okay,
great. That makes a lot of sense. Also, I read on the website, and maybe this is a point of clarification for me, and maybe others who have delved into your website as well, VoteFest. I was reading about that, and sort of that being a huge impetus behind garnering a lot of support and involvement. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So with Vote Fest, with Vote Fest, the main thing is really that youth engagement aspect. We love to harp back on. It involves kind of a group effort, a collective of just making sure we get all these ballots together and get them out to these schools. We work with the city hall to make sure those ballots are official ballots that resemble ones that would be used in, government elections. So with those, we're able to get those out to those schools. After those, we collect the ballots and we're able to count up the ballots. So that's the whole meaning behind Vote Fest. And from Vote Fest, those top 3 projects that were the highest voted are selected to be the capital projects for that year.
Okay, awesome. So it is definitely, it sounds like a very official process that you go through to make sure that votes are legitimate, but also you truly select the will of the youth. I think everyone in this audience is wondering about some of the projects and where in the world you spend $1 million, how you spend it, and if there are any restrictions. First, let's sort of go for the $1 million question. How do you spend all that money? What have you spent that money on? Give us maybe your favorite project. We can do sort of a round robin. So Sporty, we'll start on the screen. You're in the upper left-hand corner, so maybe we start with you, and then we'll go around the group.
Well, so far, I guess my favorite project that is still in the implementation process is the water bottle refilling station. I think I have a special connection to this project because before I was on YLC, I was one of the people submitting ideas. And that was one of the ideas. I was like, let me see if this idea will actually get anywhere. And next thing you know, it got selected, it got voted on, and a lot of people agreed with me. We needed more water bottle refilling stations. And then that kind of showed me I do have a voice, and other people shared the same thoughts and opinions on this project with me.
Absolutely, yeah. That's got to be a really great feeling to feel that your idea, that others support it and are thinking along the same lines as well. Fawaz, what about you from sort of a managerial point of view? What's your favorite project?
Yeah, I'll backtrack first. So over the course of the years, the money has been spent in like a multitude of ways. Early on, there may have been 5 projects, and maybe the money was divided evenly between those projects. The past few years, it's been more 333,000 allocated to 3 projects. Okay. So that's how kind of we went about it in recent years. But my favorite project is also in implementation. It's the digital bulletin boards project, which will put digital bulletin board, kind of really big TVs around across the city and Boston public libraries. Those billboards will broadcast events, job opportunities, volunteer opportunities for the youth in Boston. So I definitely think that's a major project that will kind of just aid the youth in, as many resources as made to them available in the city.
Sure, absolutely. Olivia, you as well.
Yeah, I think my favorite project so far has to be the solar benches project we did. We kind of wanted to combine the idea of how much technology is integrated into the youth's lives, but also outside in nature and stuff like that. So we have these benches that have charging outlets for phones and devices, but they're powered by the sun. And so it allows kids to be outside, but still also have access to any power they could need. Wow,
that sounds super cool.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. So I guess one of the questions that I think people have as well is, how do you measure the impact and the success of these particular projects? Is it by just the amount of engagement, by the amount of use, for example, for the benches? I know some of the projects you mentioned are in implementation, but with previous projects, in terms of, I saw one was planting trees, one was dealing with what are called food deserts, where minority communities don't have access to, or communities don't have access to, healthy food. So those challenges are addressed. How do you measure success? And whoever wants to jump in, that's a question to all three.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure everyone will have like maybe their different opinion. I would say, every project runs on its own timeline. I would definitely gauge the success on kind of the impact and, the use, as you mentioned, to it, and, how many people are involved and kind of how many people are interested in the project, as well as how many people kind of use the project to benefit themselves when it becomes available.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess we've talked a lot about sort of volunteers and those that are sort of making decisions when it comes to Youth Lead the Change. If I'm not mistaken, those are called change agents. How do you become one, and what kind of responsibilities do you have? I guess Olivia, Sporty, those questions could go to you too.
Yeah, sure. One way that you can become part of Mayor's Youth Council and Youth Lead the Change is you apply. You go through an application process. It's a few, just general information and short answer questions. And then one of my favorite parts about the application process is we have group interviews, which I think is a really great way to let individuals shine in a unique setting instead of just a one-on-one talking interview. We put all the applicants in groups, maybe of 5 or 6 people, and we give them a problem and we give them a money amount. And we say, how would you fix this? How would you change this? I know, for example, one year it was something along the lines of, how would you create? What would you do with this amount of money to make the community feel more like a whole, more together? If that kind of makes sense. So there's various ideas from art projects to parks and stuff like that. And I think that's a really fun process that we do. But once you apply, if you've been accepted, you're welcome to join the committee.
Awesome. Sporty, anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah, to address your question about the change agents. So this is more previous years in the Mayor's Youth Council, where in order to have like more engagement in YLC, to increase engagement, people who weren't selected as youth ambassadors or like being having a more role in YLC, there were change agents which kind of help in like the backhand of it, helping in like smaller ways, but it was mainly to increase the engagement in it since YLC is still growing. But this past year, we did not do the change agents way, but instead we had just a bigger group of youth ambassadors who had a bigger role and took on more roles within this YLC process.
Okay. Have you seen, you talked about sort of the growth of YLC. Talk about how the organization has either grown or changed since the initial start. What have been some of the most significant changes or maybe lessons you've learned from certain projects? If you could talk about that.
Just speaking in terms of like a broader sense, due to the fact like YLC was like the first of its own, just kind of year to year, there's been major improvements in kind of the documents we draft, how we go about making proposals, kind of building and developing our relationships with departments, because we work with so many, the Department of Neighborhood Development, Parks, just to name a couple. But in regards to like the projects, many kind of, I would say a lot of our projects have gotten bigger. And like, for example, we're working on a future media center project that would put in a digital space downstairs in our community centers, another space for the youth. Also, we're building another space for the youth, or re-renovating a performing arts center where they'd be able to record as well as, dance and things of that nature. So I would say, yeah, the projects have been mainly just getting larger and larger.
That's awesome that the projects are getting bigger. Although bigger is not necessarily better, but more, more money, I guess, invested. There's a spin-off question that I'd like to ask, because I think, and Sporty, you talked a little bit about this in terms of really realizing your voice and making it heard. And then a lot of youth think, oh gosh, how am I going to do that? How am I going to engage with a mayor's office or a governor's office or something else? Will they listen to me? Can we really make a difference? Was there resistance from the city? It sounds like it came initially from the mayor's office in the first place, but in terms of moving the projects forward, moving the organization forward, was there resistance from others, maybe outside of the mayor's office, from other groups that thought, hey, maybe we should get $1 million versus just some kids? I don't know if whoever might have a perspective.
Maybe I have a little bit. I wouldn't say there was resistance from kind of other people saying we deserve these dollars. The only thing I would mention is when we're working with a multitude of city departments, it's really important that we have kind of the statistics, demographics, the project feasibility behind the project we're proposing to them. Because if we don't have everything necessary to complete the project, it just takes really much longer for them to kind of get on our side and say, yeah, we're behind this.
Yeah, so Fawaz, it sounds like you're saying you have to do your homework. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that again makes total sense to having the facts and figures to back up what you want to do. Maybe let's switch gears a little bit and we'll bring it back here to Germany and to Youth Lead the Change here in Deutschland. First things first, how did you hear about YLC and how did you meet YLC? I know it's an interesting story because I've heard it, but everybody else hasn't. So maybe tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, sure, definitely, because Martin and I and some in the audience who are with us in the team of YLCG, we had the honor to travel with the federal now I'm confused, but we traveled with Frank-Walter Steinmeier, so this is the important thing, and the Bundespräsident, and we traveled with him to Boston because he was, he wanted to know how we as young people see the transatlantic relationship and what we think is really important right now as young people who are not, or who don't have a diplomatic stance, who are just somehow on the ground and feel the friendship. And then we visited Youth Lead the Change with Elke Büdenbender, his wife, and we met the change agents, we met Olivia personally, and yeah, we were so excited and so thrilled about this project and really got inspired that really $1 million of the capital's budget is for the youth and they can decide about it, and this was really amazing, and we still love the idea.
Was it just the $1 million, or were there particular goals that really struck you about YLC?
Well, I think the $1 million definitely makes it attractive.
Okay.
So, first of all, but I also do think what's stuck with me personally the most was kind of the lighting of the eyes and how bright they told us about their ideas and what impact actually it had and still has on the youth, on the city, and what actually it does with the change agents, with the youth in general. So I think that was the most, impressive for me. So I think it was...
Yeah, excitement can be infectious, I think.
Definitely, yes.
Not to use the word infectious during an international. Apologies for that. So, you go to Boston, you meet Youth Lead the Change there. What steps did you take? Was it immediate that you said, wow, we want to bring this back to Germany, we want to do something like that? Was it just a light bulb, or, hey, let's talk about an idea?
Well, it was in Boston, it was, let's do it in Germany, it will be easy. So it was kind of the typical Schnapsidee. But then we came back in Germany, when we looked around in cities in Germany, we realized there is not a project as Youth Lead the Change. And why is it not? And why is there so many resistance maybe to I just call it, I take some German words because maybe it's easier. Why is there so much resistance to set up a Bürgerhaushalt or a Jugendhaushalt? So we started and we took steps, but it was more of really just spread the idea and talking to people what they think about it, talking to politicians, talking to mothers and family members, what they advise us. And then we really, and this is what we are really glad of, we had the support of Elke Büdenbender, because she met those young people and she was fascinated as well. So she gave us some contact details of other people, and so it somehow the stone kept rolling and rolling, and now we are sitting here.
So it sounds like, just like our friends in Boston, you had some high-level support that really was helpful in the initial stages.
It was definitely helpful, for sure, but you still need to have the support on the ground. So really the Stadträte and the Bezirksausschüsse and everyone who is really involved on the ground. And this is sometimes a bit hard, but we still keep working on it, and we're making progress. This is really great to see.
So was the excitement here in Germany similar to the excitement you felt in Boston, especially talking to maybe youth that weren't part of the initial trip?
Yeah, definitely, because we have a lot of Youth Lead the Change members here in Germany, and we're still growing, and it's so wonderful to see that this youth engagement project actually can motivate other people who have not been on this great journey and have seen it with their own eyes. Actually, it's so inspiring. I think just because we talk about it and love the idea of how the youth is engaged in Boston and how we could maybe do it in Germany too. So I think the idea itself is just a cool idea. I mean, that's just...
Sure, absolutely. I mean, so it is definitely inspiring. Have there been obstacles that you've had to deal with in terms of moving the idea forward and getting traction, especially with, say, city governments or city officials that weren't maybe as supportive as you would have liked? I'm trying to be diplomatic about this, but...
Well, I think when we're talking about money, and especially money when it comes to public spending, I think there's always the question who gets what kind of slice of the cake.
Sure.
And especially with no proof of concept here in Germany, it is especially hard. And we, as Germans coming from America, having this can-do mentality, we of course, let's do it, let's just try it, and maybe we fail, and then we have some errors, but then we just improve the process. And I think the courage to really take a new project and to really just try it out, maybe just on a first little tiny scale, is very hard to convince the public, the decision makers in the public. But yeah, as I said, we're still trying, and we're still saying here, this is a great project, and we want to implement it.
Sure. Have you made any changes to what we heard from our Boston friends? Any changes to the program to adapt it to Germany? The answer can be no, because it is such a great program in Boston. But just as an interesting tidbit. Yeah.
Yeah, but not actually, because the Boston concept is not perfect itself.
Nice proviso. Yeah.
No. Actually, because when we came back to Germany, we just looked around and said, okay, well, what is there actually already? And there are great projects here already in Germany who are doing wonderful work. So we looked and we thought about, okay, what is kind of the super cool thing about Youth Lead the Change, and kept this core idea, but changed a few things. Like, for example, we had the idea that those goals, the 17 goals of the United Nations, would be a wonderful frame for the ideas of the youth, so that they are kind of in those 70 goals, and that would be kind of a framework. yes, so that was one of a few small adaptations we did.
Small tweaks, if you will.
Small tweaks.
Gotcha.
We don't expect the city to give us 1 million euros at first.
Right.
We started a bit lower, like 20,000 would be great, but we also take 10,000, we take whatever the city gives us, and then we can top up. Yeah.
Right.
To 2 million then, yeah. Next
Absolutely.
year.
It's good to have goals. So you mentioned, of course, working with the city, and we're here in Munich. What's the status with that? What are you doing to find a pilot city or a partner city, and is that city Munich?
Yeah, we are trying. But even if it sounds so easy, because it's just a straightforward idea, let's give $1 million to youth, it's actually pretty difficult in terms of, okay, there are lots of stakeholders involved in this process, and you kind of have to talk to everybody and try to figure out what is new, what is different, and how can you actually attach it to what's already existing in those cities. So we are trying lots of cities in Germany, and especially in Munich, because I think about half, or at least a third of our team is coming from Munich. So it was kind of the first thing we thought about. Well, let's do it in a town where lots of our members are coming from. So we did some approaches here. So we talked to politicians, like Clara said, or so that is often that we get feedback and, hey, what can we improve, and
And are you seeing substantial interest? Are you seeing growth in terms of, when you do this engagement with not necessarily politicians or people at the Rathaus or the Landtag, are you seeing interest from youth? Is that growing?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think we just met one yet that wasn't really excited about the idea, but all the others, they were, and they really...
It's a pretty good proportion, one versus...
all the others. So they were really excited about it, because what they really like is that they really they trust young people, and they say, okay, we will trust you this amount of money, and you can do of course not whatever you want, but we trust you that you know the obstacles or maybe the needs of your city, and you can really decide about this budget. And of course, what we are doing is we take a platform where they can vote on. So it's like the digital thing, and they really like the idea of having digital way, and then also the schools putting together. So there's a lot of positive feedback, but still, as Martin mentioned, there are a lot of stakeholders and a lot of decision makers in the city, and sometimes it's really hard to light up the black box of the ways in Munich.
Sure. That actually triggered a question that maybe I could go back to our colleagues in Boston. In terms of projects that you have, and I think we would all be interested to know, and maybe Martin, Clara, you could also join in too, in terms of when you have a project, and a project is voted on, it's one of the top 3, are there any restrictions? Is there any, not necessarily oversight, but is there any, if there is some, I hate to say it, outlandish proposal, is there some, once it goes through the process, are there guardrails? I hate to put it that way, but once an idea gets through the process, I guess that would be maybe determined by the rules.
Yeah, there's a few restrictions, and they kind of come into play after we gather all the ideas and we're sorting through them. The big one is that it has to be a capital project. A lot of time people request for things like education courses or something that needs to be maintained, for example, by a person who needs to be paid a salary, and that's not really feasible because we have a set amount of money. So we're really looking to do things that are more either something we can develop on or build on, a lot of times something physical, so that we create it, and then that's that financially, if that makes sense. So we sort out a lot of the ideas that aren't applicable in the after the idea collections phase. So by the time that we've done a project proposal, they're on the ballot, and if they've won, we've pretty much determined that they're all feasible.
Okay, so there is a vetting, basically a vetting process, and within the confines of the rules. Is that sort of a similar process that you're envisioning for YLGC Germany?
Pretty much, yeah.
YLGC Sorry.
Yeah. So I think we don't want the youth to spend $1 million on pizza and iPhones, of course. But there are, of course, some, as Martin says, the 17 SDG goals is kind of a great frame. But for us, it is really important to work with the city. So it is really important to have somebody from the city of Munich to support these German change agents, so that young people realize how is the budget spent, what are the ways, what are the process, having the budget to spend on projects. So for us, it is really important not to have companies, for example, give us the money and then we realize something. So we really want young people to understand the ways with politics here in Germany, and especially in Munich, of course. Yeah.
Is that also an option to engage private contributions as well? Corporate contributions?
Yeah, that was I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a thought process of our side, because we didn't have this kind of advantage that it was coming from the mayor's office and hey, there you go. So because we are approaching the city and not the other way around, it's that we first of all have to find the money, have to find the stakeholders who want to implement YLC in Germany. So we were thinking about, okay, maybe we could put in foundations who are also having money and maybe also want to support the youth. So kind of a hybrid model, that we have both the city and the foundations. But we didn't want to do it with the foundations alone, because, like Clara said, we wanted to have those political side, if we want to call it like that, so that they are involved in actually democracy and how does it work. Like Spoorthi said before, they actually make it their voices heard, and it's kind of a powerful way of actually seeing what democracy is all about.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's a great point in terms of, again, realizing your voice within government and making change in communities and inspiring people to act. And you've got a great example in the city of Boston. And another one is Munich 2040. Could you talk a little bit about YLCG in the confines or in the greater Munich 2040 event, let's put it that way.
Yeah, we just visited one event in the morning, and there was this big question, or the demand of one young woman, and she said, "I want you as a politician to engage yourself for the young teenagers and for the youth, because I am 15 and I don't have any voice. I have to wait 3 more years to really go to election, maybe 4 more years, depending on the election cycle. So there's really no way for me to tell you as a politician what I want, but you are deciding about my future. So what can we do to really engage those young people?" And I think this is a great opportunity for young people to get engaged and to realize I'm powerful and my project is here now realized, and to really see the needs of the city. So this is one way to have the community engaged and to have young people engaged, and I think this is really a great vision for Munich 2040, to have a Bürgerhaushalt, a Jugendhaushalt for the years to come. Then,
yeah, definitely. Anything to add, or?
No, I think that's
it was
a
very well
vision.
said. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess one of the last questions for you guys, and then maybe we can move on to questions, is how can youth join up? How can youth support YLCG? Is there is it online, or how does that happen?
Yeah, so kind of the goal of today's event is to inspire also German young people. Also, like, we have been inspired in Boston physically, today in virtual form. But I think that's kind of the goal. What do we want to target today that we actually can inspire. What a great project. We also want to have it here in Germany. And definitely, so if you like the idea, and if you like the idea of YLC, and you like the idea of YLC coming to Munich, then hit us up and follow us on social media, kind of spread the word. Everything you can do is helpful, yeah.
Anything else, Clara?
Really,
you are very supportive back and forth. It's really nice, yeah. So I think now that you all have the basics, I think it's best that we open the floor, and I know we already have a couple of questions from the audience. Again, you can ask questions via your mobile phones using Slido, and again, we'll try to get to as many as we can within the next limited time frame we have, unfortunately. The first one that has popped up was about something that I think I was supposed to cue, about photos of your travels to Boston. I think we do have some, which might come up on the screen. And if you could just describe a little bit about maybe what's in the photos, I think people will recognize the...
Yeah, our hair just changed a bit. So mine is longer and Martin's is longer as well. It's the result of the pandemic, but maybe Spoorthi can show us some pictures.
You might have to give me a minute.
Well, while Spoorthi's working on that, I think another... we've talked about sort of the relationship and using Boston as an example. When you were there, did you see, this is another question that came up, during your visit to Boston, did you identify similar problems that you see in Munich or in Germany as well?
Well, I really like that's why I had to laugh a bit, because I really like the idea Spoorthi came up with the water dispensers. I personally have the problem that my water bottle is empty all the time, and I've never seen any water dispensers, one in Hamburg, but I don't know how the situation in Munich is, so maybe you can help me out. But I think I really like the idea, and this is why it is for us so important to really be transatlantic and to keep the contact with the change agents, because I think it's really interesting to see what their challenges are in Boston, what they see, and then also to have the talk and the conversation with the change agents then here in Germany to really discuss problems, to come up with solutions, because sometimes the challenges are really similar. And yeah, I think it's because we are transatlantic. This is why I think it's so important for us to talk to the change agents all the time, back and forth. But do you have another challenge that?
Well, we kind of have a slogan, Youth Lead the Change. It actually was not the first thing that came to my mind when we thought, well, okay, let's bring it to Germany. Was not actually, the transatlantic was not in the foreground, actually not at all. But after we thought it for a while and was like, okay, actually that is pretty cool that the youth can, and that is kind of our slogan that we have, is miteinander reden, voneinander lernen. So basically in English it is talking with each other and learning from each other. So I think that's a wonderful way of actually, engaging young people all around the world, and especially between Germany and the US.
Sure, and you bring up a good point, and actually this goes to the next question that has come in, and I think it goes to our, we might have photos maybe, or we've lost Boston. It has fallen into the Atlantic Ocean. Well, the next question that's come up is, how much are youth involved in the process of actually implementing the projects? Does it just sort of stop with the ideas, or does it move on to physically, I know one of the projects was planting trees. Another project was, of course, working with the homeless throughout Boston. Are youth actually involved in the day-to-day groundwork, or is it more in the theoretical idea stage and getting the funding for these projects? Fawaz, I don't know, that might be able to go to you. Oh, we actually have pictures. Maybe we we can go through those first, and then Fawaz, we'll go over to you for maybe an answer on that question, or anyone, frankly. So let's see. This looks like.
Yeah, that was the lunch meeting with the Ecke Bühnenbänder with all the. Oh yeah. Yeah, Olivia.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing right now, but yeah, this is just the group photo of all the Boston youth and the German youth kind of meeting together with. I'm very sorry, I'm not gonna say her name properly. Elke Bühnenbänder.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good to us.
Thank you.
You translated it well.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's another photo. And I believe we also have some photos of the projects we've been working on are also completed.
Everyone looks, I mean, Martin, you were talking about the excitement. Everyone looks very happy and very excited. So I think that is definitely indicative of a very popular project. Some of the images that are flashing on the screen, this looks like the solar benches.
Yeah, that's one of the solar benches. That was just we had some members from our team go take pictures with it. If you can kind of see at the top, the solar panel is up there, and the charging outlets are around the side.
I was about
that was in a park.
Yeah, I was about to say that amazing. That looks a lot like a normal bench. I don't know what I was expecting, but when you say solar bench, I don't know what that means. So it looks like there's a number there with 3,133 votes. That seems like a lot of engagement. We talked about earlier how many votes and how many people were involved in sort of supporting these projects. How many youth would you say on average vote for your particular projects? Because if you have a top 3, that means is that 10,000, or what are the numbers associated with these projects?
Yeah, so it's been growing exponentially every year, and each person gets 3 votes, if that makes sense. So it's not like this project got 1/3 of the votes. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but in the past voting process we had about 7,500 people vote. The one before that, we had 5,000 people vote. So every year that we do it, it's been going up and up. I think the biggest reason for the jump is we were able to get the ballots into more schools instead of just having to, go to community centers or community events. The schools has been really key in getting more youth involved. But yeah, about 7,500 voters the past process.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of youth, and definitely schools. I think there's a captive audience there, so absolutely a resource. With these particular photos, you have youth sort of course, sitting on the benches, but back to the question in terms of, were you able to help install them? Were you able to work on these projects, or is it, you rely on the many departments of the Boston city government to assist?
It's a mixture of both. It's definitely a bit of both. We do a lot of the kind of bigger level idea planning, more specifics, we think this park would really use some benches, for example, or whatever. And then for a lot of the more physical hardware side of it, we hand it over to the city departments to help.
Is that what you're envisioning for YLCG as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think actually it is kind of a cool way also for young people to see, okay, how does it actually work? How is this process of, okay, here we do have an idea, and how is this process of going to the implementation? So also kind of how the city works behind the scenes.
And then there's a really great question that just came in, which I think is really sort of targeted at sort of where we stand as a society. And it's, are there certain areas that you think youth are particularly interested in, especially from Boston as an established program, but also when you're talking to students here in Germany, like the environment, for example? Are there particular areas that you find students are interested in? And maybe we start with Boston, Spoorthi. Are there particular areas that you think youth are interested in terms of feeding projects?
I think it's more the youth in the areas which they think will have the most impact on their community. It's usually communities that need help the most and would benefit the most from one of these projects or ideas that they have submitted. That's mostly what we see, especially with like maybe a renovation of school building. The school building is run down. A lot of people from that school would want to see an impact on that. So it's mostly where the area of need is really seen.
Okay, sure. So there's no particular, particular policy area. It's more, like you said, where a particular need is. I noticed on the website there was a particular project about rejuvenating the heating systems for particular schools. I know that has been, especially infrastructure for communities in need could be a big thing. Here in Germany, is that the same, or do you see particular areas where students and youth are very, very interested?
Well, I think because of the movement of Fridays for Future, I think there are a lot of projects, and I think this is a great chance for people to really think about ways what we can actually do and what projects are really actually in order to, of course, we cannot tackle the whole climate change, but what can we do in our local communities to improve ways? And I think there was a project called Urban Farming in Boston, so there are a lot of projects that really take this whole approach to the local communities. And when we introduce the projects, there are a lot of projects that are dealing with environment and how can we just shorten ways from one way to another, and what can we do in this city, make it greener, plant more trees, make it bee friendly, whatever. So there are a lot of creative ideas, and this is what we love. And I think this is what a lot of politicians, and I don't want to be too critical, but underestimate and really trust the young people that they really have creative ideas, that they have great ideas that are just not something that cannot be realized, but they are really concrete ideas, what they would like to see in the city and what is really feasible. And I think we have to just trust the young people more.
Sure, absolutely. Martin?
Yeah, I can just agree with that. But I also agree with the Boston side that we don't focus on the environmental things. Like I said, it's just those 17 SDGs, so it's basically open to whatever idea you have. It's creativity is no limit to be said. It's just, whatever you want, whatever your need is, and what do you think the city needs, what do your community needs. But definitely, I think the environment and climate change is a super important topic for the youth also in Germany. So,
casting a wide net, but also targeted approaches to where there's a specific need. We also got a question that's more rules-oriented, I think, if you could call it that, because this, the organization is called Youth Lead the Change, so that indicates that youth would be a part of it. Is there an age? I mean, is there an age requirement, and can you quote graduate from YLC? And if you do, can you come back, or do you have alumni? How does that work when, say, you go off to college or do something else? Maybe to Boston, you guys first.
So right now, actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. We are working on a way to kind of keep those MYC, Mayor's Youth Council members who leave YLC, kind of keep them engaged on projects they've been working on and projects that are still being implemented. Some of them don't get to see they get to see the start of their project. They don't get to see kind of the completion of it. So we're definitely working on a way to just keep them involved and update them continuously on how their projects are going, even after they've left the committee.
Olivia, Sporty, maybe a personal question. How do how much longer do you have with YLC?
This is unfortunately my last year this past year. I'm 18, I'm going to college next year. And unfortunately, if I was staying in Boston, I would definitely help out, but I'm moving to Montreal actually. So I will be physically away, but I'm like, for example, I'm still been involved over this summer. I'm definitely going to keep up involvement over the past years. I want to see my projects through, and I just, I really love YLC. I honestly, truly do. So I want to just keep up with everything about it.
Congratulations on going to college and your travels to Montreal. Sporty, what about you?
I'm in the same position as Olivia almost, where I also just graduated this past year, but I am staying local for college, so I do plan to at least volunteer some of my time at YLC or Mayor's Youth Council in general, because I really enjoyed it. I was there for a full 4 years, so I would love to continue seeing where YLC will go and hopefully be a part of that journey as well.
Absolutely. To you two here in Germany, as you get older, and as the organization progresses, what do you see as the future and sort of maintaining the momentum that you have and inspiring more? What are ways that you're looking at to do that? I mean, of course, events like this, but are there any other particular routes that you see that you can go down?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's super important that we are growing kind of an organization that is long-term and sustainable, that we have people that have certain skill sets and can do special things, especially in convincing a city and also organizing this whole thing. So that's definitely one thing of the next steps. And then personally, I think, yeah, we will definitely be on a YLC in the near future. Yeah.
Same thing for you as well?
Yeah, growing as an organization, but also events like this where we would like to convince you of YSG and the great idea behind it. And then also, and I think this is an interesting topic because maybe you are also engaged and you have a project that you're running. What can we do as young people to have maybe who have a social startup or a normal startup? Where do we get support and how can we grow as such a social startups? And there are many great projects, and I think this might also be a demand from Munich 2040 that there is more money for such great projects, not only for YSG, but also for our ideas from the youth that are going to be realized. And yeah, that would be great that we get the support from the city and not only for this project, but also for other projects from other people.
And future projects, absolutely. One note for everyone in the audience, also, just remember that you can also ask questions, and I've been asked to repeat the URL, so it's SLI.do, and the code is #MUC2040. So if you have a question, please go to Slido and you can ask it through that particular application. So you brought up particular projects, and I think this question goes maybe back to Boston. If there's a gauge that you can use, what has been the most successful project in terms of whether that's interest or engagement or use by the residents of Boston? In your opinion, what's been the most successful? Maybe let Olivia. Let's start with you, and then we can go to Fawaz, and then we'll go to Sporty. If there might be consensus, but if there's not, you can each give your opinion.
I think
so Olivia,
I think that's a really hard question because I feel like a lot of the projects, since their natures are very different, kind of gauging the level of success varies. I'm thinking of one project where we renovated a high school gymnasium, which I think was very successful because, kids use that every day. But I also think our recent project of helping renovate a local homeless shelter was very successful because I know there was a lot of interest in kind of helping out our homeless community in Boston. And through that project, I think that Youth Lead the Change and Mayor's Youth Council, and that specific shelter have built a good connection. I know a lot of times members from the committee go there and volunteer. So I think, I don't know, I think in that kind of sense, building bridges, that one's also been very successful. Yeah.
Fawaz, maybe let's go to you next.
Yeah, I would agree with Olivia on the Boston Shelters project. I think that one has been very impactful and kind of just building relationships, and even them going there and kind of seeing like what needs to be done there. And so from them early on going to it being in that part of idea collection, to it becoming a proposal, and then to have the whole city of Boston kind of feel the same way and have that voted in, and now it's it'll be completed by the end of the summer. I think that's also a great project. I would say one that I've always gotten kind of some great feedback on and positive reviews was the recent project we've also completed, Green Streets, which was putting recycling trash cans as well all over the city. And they also have the YLC branded logo on them. So I've gotten a lot of just like people saying, hey, like I put trash in the can the other day, like I saw it was YLC, like it wasn't there before, like, and just like stuff like that, you know, kind of shows that you make an impact even though it's little. But yeah.
Sure, that's some great marketing for YLC as well, along with a great project. You know, you got to have that marketing out there too. Sporty, over to you.
I would have to agree with both Fawaz and Olivia on the homeless shelters. Personally, when I was like handing out like the ballots and stuff for Vote Fest, and I would ask the kids, hey, you choose 3 projects from this list. What are you interested in choosing? A lot of them were very interested in helping with the homeless shelter. I remember specifically this one person told me, she was like, I've seen a lot of people, like, especially in winter when it's snowing, like out cold, and they're lacking the resources, you know, and they really felt for that and wanted to improve their situations, because when you're walking around Boston, you don't want to see someone like being cold and, you know, like struggling. So it was really nice to see how much the youth felt for like their community in that way.
Sure, and definitely an immediate impact as well, getting, you know, helping someone get out of that cold Boston weather. So maybe a question for everyone that, you know, we've talked about the schematics and the logistics of these, you know, these organizations, but in terms of youth participation, why do you think youth participation is so important? I know we've talked about it in certain contexts related to YLC or YLCG, but why do you think youth participation is so important now? Maybe that's a better qualifier. So Martin, maybe we'll go to you, Clara, and then we can go back to Boston. I know it's rather broad, but...
Yeah, so there are definitely a lot of changes. I think, I speak of a young person, I think that we want to see in the world, and we see a lot of difficulties and challenges we are facing. So it's not just climate crisis, it's all, you know, it's kind of everything. If you're watching news, and it's kind of terrifying what's going on all around the world, so you kind of want to have your voice heard, and I think that's kind of a way to engage in public affairs and public relations, and in that sense. Yeah, so I think that's kind of a cool way to engage.
Absolutely, Clara.
Yeah, I think, yeah, as you all know, Demokratie ist nicht selbstverständlich. So I don't know the English word for that, but I think that we have to start right now to really engage young people, and that they realize and they feel it and they see it, that they have a voice and that they are really important, not only for democracy but also for society. So I think this is such an important step, and I think we have to enhance all the possibilities we have to create new young leaders, as we've seen from the Boston example, but also to create new politicians, young politicians who make their voice heard, because what we've seen, the benefits from this project, is that they are not only engaged in YLC, but also then engaged in other projects and maybe become a politician and doing the change on their own. So I think, yeah, it's time to act now and to engage the young people. It's for our sake, for the sake of democracy, so yeah.
It's a great. I mean, it's absolutely. I think you're completely right in terms of it being a great start to future future things, bigger and better, and having a greater and greater impact. Throwing it to our friends in Boston. What do you think? Why is youth engagement so important, especially now for the city of Boston, but also just in general? Fawaz, maybe we go to you first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, just the point, they made great points. I would also say, like, just youth are way more cognizant now of everything going on, more socially aware. And especially, like, in regards to Boston, there's more kind of senior figures in city departments. I think the youth engagement is a really important aspect just in terms of kind of bridging the gap between the city and the youth, which is very important. Yeah, that's basically why I feel the youth engagement has been very important.
Olivia, what do you think?
I think I agree with everyone who's spoken so far. You know, the youth obviously are part of, the city, this community, and they should have a strong voice in it. Often they're overlooked. And I also think that just having a vessel to do that, like this committee, it just allows young people to grow so much. I know for me personally, just being a part of this committee has like increased my confidence, just kind of my leadership abilities. I never led a committee or a council or anything like that, but it showed me that I am, and I can do it. I'm capable of this. I think there's a lot of personal growth that goes into when you're working on such intense projects like this, and when you're being seen as valid and recognized and heard. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. Sporty, over to you for the last word.
Everyone made fantastic points, but I want to go back to something Clara said. She said, like, we have these people who are holding basically our future in their hands. Why can't we be a voice and part of what we want in our future, and then continue the same for future generations? If we're going to be in this world, we should have a say in what we want in it and how to better ourselves and society in that sense. So youth engagement is extremely important in that way.
Absolutely, and I think that is a great point sort of to end on. One final question, because I know our time is running short, but I think we've talked a lot about the transatlantic relationship and making sure that this transatlantic bridge between Germany and the United States, I'm speaking more, as a diplomat, of course, is built and reinforced. And it sounds like that relationship has been done. So my question is, are there any plans in the works to build on this relationship between YLC and YLCG? Are there any discussions for exchanging ideas? Is that conversation still happening? Will it continue?
Well, from our side, there is a big yes to this friendship, because we made experience, and we think that you aren't as crazy as some others might think, but we love Americans, and so we are definitely holding strong on this friendship, and okay, Olivia is nodding, Spoorthi is nodding too, so I'm glad that there's mutual understanding, and yeah, we would love to see it in the future, to keep it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we can do a vision for 2040. Like, maybe we can exchange physically sometime soon, hopefully, and exchange ideas, like you said, and learn from each other. I think that would be wonderful.
So I said that was the last question, but we have one final question that just came in, so I feel obligated and happy to address this final question. But this one will be the last one. So for YLCG, what are your plans for the next year? Or in other words, what milestones do you plan to achieve within the next year or two? So what are your plans in the near future? I don't know.
Well, convince Munich to do YLC. Well, that's pretty
go
straightforward.
big.
As easy as that.
Yeah. kind of, yeah. So currently we are in the process of founding an association and here in Germany, and then you also can join and be a member and be involved in general. You can do that already, but you can do that as a member then too, and then as a kind of how do you say that? As a I don't know the word. Juristische Person, I don't know. Well, that was a difficult word. Yeah, right. Kind of, you can go and convince a city. I think that's kind of a cool way to go. And yeah, that's kind of where we are and where we want to go.
Sounds great. Sounds like bold plans for the next 1 to 2 years. And we absolutely wish you the best of luck. Thank you to all of our panelists. Here, of course, in Munich, but also to our wonderful panelists in Boston as well. Thank you to our hosts, amerikahaus, Munich, and Munich 2040. This has truly been an inspiring discussion. I hope everyone here is inspired. I know I'm inspired, although I think, a little too old to participate in Youth Lead the Change, but I'm absolutely just happy and thrilled to support it. I hope you all were inspired too. And again, as Martin said, you can find more information out about YLCG online, or just even keep in touch. And thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thank you again, Boston.